Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of High Minded with McCarter. I am your host, McCarter.
I'm SK, the co-host. On this episode, we had the ladies from Edaphic Solutions, Shelby and Volta, her
Partner
protege.
in crime.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Protege.
Yeah. What is a protege? Anyway, it was really awesome talking to them. They were super informative. The future of agriculture, the past of agriculture, the government and corporate conspiracy against liquid fertilizers.
This episode was crazy full of information. I am still blown away at everything I learned and am going to take back to my everyday life. But basically, they started this amazing natural compost tea, which is like just the version of it all liquid form together. That's a natural fertilizer, which is really good for the ground and our soil, which has basically been depleted by the nitrate-based fertilizers that the government has been distributing.
Yeah, they had a bunch left over. After World War II, there was a bunch of chemicals left over from weapons, and they decided to put it into our agriculture and put it into the soil that grows our food. So there's a lot of dead soil out there, and these ladies have figured out a really, really great natural way to bring it back.
And basically, we talk about all the harmful effects of Roundup and other bad fertilizers that have been killing the soil over the last couple decades. But we basically have 60 years left to save our soil, and I think this is one of the ways that we can do it.
Yeah, they blew my mind with, they had a statistic, 11% of the world's usable soil, if it were living, could reverse climate change at this point.
Oh,
so
they're so knowledgeable.
It was amazing to talk to them. They blew my mind with like every little bit. We just touched on so many things that I wasn't expecting to touch on.
Yeah.
So.
It is so epic. I can't wait to re-listen. But a special shout out goes out to MJ Arsenal, today's episode sponsor. I am in love with their new charcoal series set. I just got the Ursa in the mail, and it is so cute and perfect. It's going to definitely be my new everyday rig for those tiny dabs that are perfect.
Yeah, I like their mini rig system. Less air, more flavor. Terpometer.
Yeah, they definitely know what they're doing. And it's a great price point, too. So check them out at mjarsenal.com, and you can use our code McCarterGetsHigh to save.
As always, follow us, subscribe, like, all the stuff. On Instagram, we are at HighMindedPod, and follow McCarter at McCarterGetsHigh.
And as always,
stay high.
I'm Shelby, and I started this compost tea business after I graduated CU Boulder in 2016.
Go Buffs.
Go Buffs. I'm originally from suburbs of Detroit, Michigan, but I lived out here for 10 years now and have really built an amazing community around the soil and plants and regenerative agriculture, and that's how I know Zach, and just got really connected and really rooted down here in really beautiful ways. So the compost tea has kind of led me on this journey. And what compost tea is, it is a liquid form of compost that is a plant food and also acts as a pesticide. So we pretty much brew that up for residences, people's yards, their lawns, their flower gardens, their vegetable gardens, their trees. And so that goes all the way from small scale to large scale. So we work with some commercial clients and farmers. Cool. And just really building the soil in any way that we can.
I
with
already so many questions, but that's amazing. First of all, congratulations on starting your own business. Loves all these seeing badass females getting after it. We need to take over.
Yeah, hell yeah. Do you have a background in horticulture?
I went to CU for environmental studies and geography. Cool. So, but I got really interested in the soil from permaculture. I took a permaculture design class.
Oh, cool.
And that really also empowered me to start my own company. Not only did it bring me way closer to the plants, like I had like an aha moment in the course of like I grew up just knowing like this is a tree, this is a flower, this is a bush. And then in my permaculture class, we're like, no, like all these, like what kind of plant is so important and all the functions that this plant provides. I just got really mind blown. I felt like my life changed taking that course.
Wow.
And
Wow,
then
that's
from there,
beautiful.
I got led to other people that did had the compost tea business that supported me to start my own. So just really community
Wow.
led me here.
Yeah, that's so cool. Wow.
I love
Boulder's
that.
really,
We are a big community here.
it's a really cool
kind of why I don't want to
place.
leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call it the mycelium network of
Nice.
people. Like that, we're all little mushrooms. And we're all
Yes.
connected.
We've like I say
totally
that too.
agree.
Like we're
Yeah,
we're all just all little mycelium.
I feel like if the world could, like, that's the path to world peace. If we could, like, actually access this mycelial network
And
between
I think
ourselves.
we can, and more people are. There's this like idea of the fruiting body of the mushroom. Like you only see it come to life every so often, but the mycelium remains alive, and that's really what connects us.
Yeah.
Oh, so cool.
Exactly.
Even if we're not actively on the same project at the same time, like that's okay. Like we're all just sending each other that energy and sharing resources the way that the mycelium would.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Volta, will you introduce yourself? You beautiful talking head.
You
that
just blew my mind, and I really want to touch back on that, actually. Yeah. But
Yeah, hi, I'm Volta Lourias. I don't know, I'm a mystic and an artist, and I don't like to frame myself around my work, but rather how I feel the quality of which I'm engaging with my work, or not work for that matter. But yeah, my first touch into the soil was after a big trauma. I decided I'm gonna go live in the forest. I don't know what else to do right now. And I met a cool herbalist guy, 7 Songs. You can still take his classes in New York. And he could tell I was really going to stick around and that I had no fucking clue what I was doing. And I didn't. I was like, 20, 21. I had...
This in upstate New York?
This was in New Mexico, actually.
Oh, New Mexico,
At the time,
okay.
yeah. And he just kind of took me under his wing, and he taught me forest gardening,
Wow.
how to feed myself. He taught me foraging, how to feed myself or make my own medicine cabinet.
So
He
cool.
taught me how to put together my first aid kit, how to like communicate with other humans, even though I'm like avoiding them actively if I need to, if the shit goes down. And I was just like, wow, this man, like, this was such a gift.
Wow.
This was
What a
truly
mentor.
a gift. So that was kind of my start with it. And coming from a childhood upbringing in the suburbs, which is very disconnected from nature and natural patterns.
yeah.
Totally.
In New Mexico.
In Texas.
In Texas,
In
okay.
Texas, yeah.
Oh.
And
Suburbia.
yeah. Yeah, I grew up around Dallas. So having that like initiation into the soil of like, hey, if you pay attention to what's happening and you know what to listen for and you know what to look for, this thing will take care of you, even in the desert.
Wow.
And it did for quite some time.
Wow.
And yeah, ever
Wow.
since then, I've just always been so amazed with, I don't even know how to describe it, just the interconnectedness of life and how all life forms exist together, kind of doing their own thing, kind of interacting, kind of keeping each other in check,
Yeah.
creating new life. It's wild. It's wild.
Wow.
So yeah, I love it. I just admire the soil and all of its magic so much.
Yeah. So how did you two meet then?
Through a midwife. My midwife friend, yeah, did you know that?
No, what?
I feel like this
You
is
didn't
so
know how they
related.
met? How you didn't know,
Because-
remember?
Wait, no, this is.
I actually
okay.
feel like this is key to
Yeah,
this conversation because someone who understands like the wet, dark mystery of the womb, or at least is fascinated. Who of us really understands it, right?
Yeah.
But someone who reveres that, let's say, was like, hey, I think you'd like this compost tea thing. I saw a thing on Facebook. I'm like on Facebook, but I hate it. I never look at it. So she was like, go talk to this person. And I was like, okay, that sounds fun. And I wasn't sure if I was going to continue traveling or kind of root down where I was. I'd been traveling my whole career. So I was like, I don't know, I'll check it out. And now here we are, just
So
best
you
of friends.
Were
doing all
you
sorts of fun
traveling
things.
like through Boulder or
Through Gold Hill.
or like?
After I left the forest, I took on a yoga career.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I finished school in that vein, and I traveled around and I taught at different studios, workshops, retreats,
Okay.
which was fun. But I also I just kind of wanted more. I wanted something different and engaging. You reach a level of mastery with things and like you want to dig deeper. So I was like, okay, I'm going to like turn to the earth right now. Like that sounds really fun and nourishing to me.
So when you say forest gardening versus foraging, what is kind of the distinction there? Are you like planting your own stuff you like have full on? Okay.
Yeah, you're totally getting the idea. And I think there may be some spectrum and crossover because what's the word I'm looking for? Stewardship.
Okay.
The stewardship does matter around foraging. Like we're not just taking anything. We are planting seeds as we go along when we're foraging.
Yeah. Like an honorable harvest. Kind of.
Right. Like I try to interact with the earth in the way that like these herbal teachers have told me like, hey, like if you just take, you're not left with much. You have to be giving back in the same breath. So that was just kind of instilled in me from a young age. So there is some crossover, but forest gardening is a little more purposeful and getting a little more towards agriculture practices where you're like, oh, I want to eat a carrot. And this is only going to grow if I don't let the little leaves get crushed on the way up because they're really tender or whatever it may be. So that one implies a little bit more human attention. But I will say it was really cool maybe putting in 1 hour of work every day and being completely fed.
Right.
Wow, yeah.
After being in a world where like you work 8, 9, 10 hours a day and you're like, great, I can afford to have roommates. I was just like, wow, like what the earth has to give is huge.
Yeah.
Wow. So what led you both to compost tea then?
Well, so wait, I need to go back to the because
back to the midwife.
I was looking for employees, like my first kind of real employees. And what I mean by employees, I mean people that will come out with me and spray the compost tea on any jobs that I get. And so this is pretty early on in me starting. And so I put out a Facebook ad, and Volta is the only person who called me directly. And I was like, okay, girl, you want to come
You're
help
hired.
me? Well, I wanted
Like
to
a
work.
tryout,
Yeah,
kind of.
and it was honestly just moving my stuff from one location to the next. And I was like, if you can heavy lift and drive in a car with me and have good conversation, then we can work together. And that's pretty much when she came to work with me. It happened. And
How long ago was that?
That was in 2020.
Okay.
Wow.
So 2 years of working together. And then from there, we just really have become so close. And I've only lived in the mountains for the past 3 years. Like I lived in Boulder. So I've been in Gold Hill for 2. And I brought her up to Gold Hill like last year.
Nice.
So yeah, we're creating like lots of magic up there.
So
it's already so magical.
You live there and you do like, is your business based there as well? Or
No.
like, where do you get all of your like supplies?
We just moved to a farm. Shout out the Yellow Barn Farm. It's off 36th and Nelson Road, going up to Lyons from here.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a big yellow barn. You can't really
Yeah,
miss it.
I've passed it.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
So we're
Nice.
moving there on agricultural land. That feels really good after kind of,
Hell yeah.
just
Congratulations.
running. Yeah, after running out of where I live, and then we were in a warehouse these past 2 years.
Okay.
And it's just so much better to be working on land that we can put any leftovers or just interact with the whole community instead of just like a warehouse where everyone's renting and
Totally.
being closer to the
It
land.
feels so good to be a member of the farm. Again, it's that mycelium. Like I know there's going to be give and take and just our energy there. People are so excited to have compost tea who already know about it. They're like, oh, this is a perfect fit. This makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it feels good to be working with that kind of energy supporting us.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. So what is in the compost?
Yeah. What makes it so
And,
special?
so I guess what led me to compost tea, as all ties in, is like going back to my story about the plants. And once you like learn about plants, you can't ignore the soil. So I got really interested in the soil component because that was like a part of the course, like pretty much every permaculture course, and they have a whole soil section. So that's why I first learned about compost tea, and then I met some people that were brewing it. And what was so fascinating is that we're taking the compost and we're putting it in a mesh bag that looks like a tea bag. So that's why it's even called tea.
So it's really just steeping in the compost.
And it's
Cool.
aerating. So it's bubbling.
Okay.
And you can do cycles from 4 to 24 or even more hours of brewing That's what we call it.
Okay.
It's brewing. The compost tea is brewing.
Wait,
and then,
so you're like, do you put water in
yes,
there?
there's
with
water.
it?
Yeah. So
Okay.
we brew at 250 gallons at a time.
Oh, okay, wow.
And
Whoa, but
yeah.
at what like temperature? I guess is the
Just
mixture.
Yeah, do you like boil the water?
no,
and then, like, make,
there's
hot
like
tea?
you can use hot water because the microbes actually love heat. So some people have like heaters inside their compost tea brewer, but no, it's not actually hot in any way.
Okay.
It's hot in life.
Yeah, it's like,
Hot in microbes.
does it get warm as the
It
life?
definitely does.
Okay,
Exactly. Like a
cool.
compost pile.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
Exactly.
Oh,
It's very similar. So we're the when the bubbles are happening, what's actually happening is it's releasing the microbes from the compost particles and they'll be suspended in water. Every single or like most microbes can live in water. And that was something that blew my mind because I was like, how are we taking these like soil microbes and
Right,
putting
because
them
we
in water?
extract the plant matter out, and then they're just little organisms on their own. But they
Wow.
don't mind.
And then we feed
They're
them.
just living still. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we
Yeah.
feed them certain
So they're
foods
happy. They're
that also
multiplying,
act
they're
as like
populating.
yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
And then they are also eating each other. And so, yes, there is a lot of heat.
it's an entire
fuck? Wait.
ecosystem happening.
It's called the soil
Exactly.
food
Cool.
web.
Okay.
You know how we learned about the food web in school?
Absolutely.
Soil food web is its total own thing. And, you know, if
Why
one.
aren't they teaching regular people about this?
because they
a
like
lot of
selling
people-
nitrate-based.
Yes, they do
garbage.
not know that the soil is alive. And I love calling the soil the skin of the earth or the womb of the earth. It is very much so always alive, always producing, and we do not treat it well.
Wow.
Just
Yeah.
currently.
Wow. Holy fuck. Okay, so what do you put in the compost tea to like make it the like, or I guess
How
what
do you feed it?
So yeah, so there's
What do you know
different-
it needs?
There's different recipes. Like it's really cool. There's not just like one way of making compost tea. So there is a way to encourage bacterial growth within the tea.
Okay.
Which bacteria is like one of the most basic organisms and so necessary in every single system. And so those are pretty easy to cultivate. And then it goes all the way to fungal dominant
okay.
teas. So we make at a different time of year, spring, summer, fall is like when we spray people's yards.
Cool.
And each cycle is either bacterial, fungal, balanced, or just fungal.
Okay, based on the season.
And then we can add really anything extra to that because what we're focusing is on the biological life, but you know, just adding nutrients that we make in not organic, but more natural ways. We can get into that. It's called like fermented plant juices and stuff, and like using weeds to harness their nutrients in their microbial life.
Even into like the insect world, we've put in beneficial nematodes to address specific problems people are having on their land. There are so many different forms of life and kingdoms of life we can pull from to nourish the soil. And it's kind of like just like recruiting the right soldier for the job. You just like put the
Yes.
right crew out there and just let them do all the work for you.
Wow.
So, can you go more into that example, like to give more color to the? Because I'm still like not like what would be my problem in my yard? I guess that I would be like, I'm gonna call y'all to do like.
It's not,
You know, like
It's like restoring.
it's not like a problem. It's like
yeah, I mean, it definitely can fix issues, but it's more so just if you're going to need to feed a plant, you can do it in these natural ways. It doesn't have to be
Okay.
stuff you buy
So it's
from
more
the
of-
store. So it's kind of
okay.
like honestly a personal choice.
So it's
and
like
some
a
people have been
natural
making
fertilizer.
Yeah, they've been making compost tea for themselves for years. Like this
Yeah.
is really ancient. It's not
so
new
yeah,
at all.
people can make their own
yeah.
compost.
Oh
teas.
yeah.
100%.
And they just like put
Okay.
like a bubbler.
Yeah.
Like a fish aerator stone in a bucket or like a big barrel.
Mm-hmm.
And they also, people would use like pillowcases for the compost tea
Oh,
bag, you know,
okay,
like,
yeah.
Now there's even kits, so you can, order a kit for a 5-gallon thing.
That makes sense.
And that's one of the things I
Cool.
think is so cool about compost tea. It's not like we're reinventing the wheel or even like innovating anything. We're just like, this is old and proven and good.
This
and it
is
makes a
way
lot of
better,
sense.
yeah, than any of the other
And
stuff.
I see how effective it is. We treated this poor tree last year that I think, I don't want to name names, but one of those like you get a green lawn companies.
Oh yeah.
Just ruined, just like really,
That's
really
so
injured.
sad.
Lots of chemical
I was-
burn and like over nutrient bad effects that are happening. You see all these things happen when they get fed too much. And what I love about compost tea. It's really gentle. It's old school. It's balancing with the environment. It's interacting with all these different levels of life. And that tree recovered so well after just one treatment.
Wow.
And it was really beautiful to see.
So you saw the progression like 1 year later, you said?
It would have been 2-3 months.
Yeah, we can see differences.
That's so cool.
So a tagline I like to say is grow soil to grow healthy plants. So the reason why you would use compost tea is they're very interconnected. And if something is going wrong with your plants, it means something's going wrong in your soil. So, and on the plants,
It's like get to the root of the problem.
Yes, but even on their leaf surfaces, they have a whole microbiome living on them. So we actually like spray foliar spraying as well as the soil, and we do like deep root tree injections to get to the tree roots. But it's that. So the reason why the microbes are even important is that, you're holding soil and it's full of all these minerals, but the minerals are not in plant available form. So then microbes create a relationship with the plant where they are unlocking these microbes and putting them in plant available form. And so they're just speaking with each other, hanging out. In return, the plants are giving the microbes carbon, which is what all life lives from, is carbon. So it is this mutualistic, beautiful relationship. And if we can just steward that instead of ruining it, you see crazy growth.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. We've seen people tell us that even just putting their hands in their soil, it has physically transformed their soil, just our compost tea.
And for those of you not in the Rockies, the soil here is literal rocks. At best, it's clay. So to be able to submerge your hand in the soil is like an invitation. It is the soil telling you she's actually ready to receive.
And now time for a quick commercial break. MJ Arsenal makes mini rigs and bongs perfect for your next adventure. Why mini rigs? Less air equals more flavor for your terpenes. Sacrifice nothing and elevate the ordinary session with MJ Arsenal. And they have a new, really great colored charcoal, perfect for him or her.
Use code McCarterGetsHigh to save at mjarsenal.com.
Would you say that the natural fertilizer that you're making is like carbon based? Because that's kind of, we had a someone who came on our podcast, Tim McCormick.
Yeah, I listened to that one.
Yeah, so I'm trying
Loved
to
it.
kind of like use that knowledge we learned there and like, bring this all together.
Yeah, it seems like carbon is what soil wants.
Yes, and nitrogen, right? Because that's what compost is, carbon and nitrogen. And then also just organic matter. And the organic matter is the decaying plants, is the microbes.
Like everything going through like decomposition.
Yeah,
So
like
the
we
things
are
that the
organic
microbes and
matter.
stuff, that is part of the carbon content.
Yeah,
These are the
okay.
life forms.
Cool.
Wow, it makes so much sense when you say it makes it like bioavailable to the plants
Right.
in
It's
a way
like
that
we
it
can
can't
eat
be.
supplements from, the supplement store all day long, but if we're not eating whole foods that are bioavailable to our body, we're still not going to get it.
Yeah, it's like
It's kind of the same with plants. They do best eating what they actually eat in an environment that is helping them digest. It's so fun. They all work together. They're all just feasting all day.
that's amazing. That's
Just-
really
yeah.
So so for example, my landlord sprays our lawn with not good
Roundup?
stuff. Yeah, I was gonna say some
Like weed killer?
Yeah, totally. The Roundup exactly. And it's terrible. And our lawn is miserable, but like we have to keep it green. That's like their whole agreement with our landlord.
Ours says that too.
Yeah. So
What
it's
is
like lawns, man.
Do you guys
I don't
know where that like came from? Having a
green lawn?
Yeah.
No.
We're
It
going to
was-
love this.
the British. So it was just a way of having a garden that shows people that you're not putting work into it. Like a lawn is actually not that much work at the end of the day. So it was a status thing.
Okay.
To say, hey, we are privileged enough to not have to work on our land. And, that's something that was done all the way with slave labor in plantations and things, right? So landscaping is really deeply rooted in a lot of cultural things that have happened in
so
history.
nuts.
And so, so we're
silly.
just like still living in that time where people are like green lawn when lawns don't even serve that many functions. Like going back to the thing about there's so many plants that serve so many different functions.
Yeah.
And we could be growing those
Yeah. Right.
instead of a lawn.
What do you
Right.
have you like guerrilla gardening with native seeds and stuff like that? Is that I don't know, how do you feel about that?
Oh, totally about that. I mean, also being cautious of the species that you're taking to different places.
Yeah,
'Cause
with
you can
native,
you can introduce like invasive and stuff like that. But yeah, we actually did a guerrilla gardening at a fracking site.
Oh, cool.
We
Wait, can you
stormed.
explain what that means more?
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry,
so
I
guerrilla
don't
gardening
even
is
know.
activism with active gardening.
Oh,
So
okay.
you are.
Is it like a Johnny
physically-
Appleseed approach?
No, it was like the one.
You
I
just
mean, my
kind of
experience that I
Throwing
did,
seeds
it-
everywhere you go.
But
Not
we
wrong.
actually,
Yeah,
we
kind
came in though with plants and we're like digging holes. It was really quick
Oh,
because
cool.
the cops might have been called, we've been taken away because we were trespassing.
Oh, okay,
We
that's
started
what I'm
we started
wondering.
working with
You
the
are
earth.
You're doing it on land
and
you don't
showing-
have access to necessarily.
Okay.
Wow. So like really guerrilla, like going in.
Yeah, it was
cool.
very cool. That was with like 350 Colorado, if you know them.
Yeah.
Like a climate change
They're really cool.
organization. And that was like maybe 3 years ago at this point. And the garden has not survived because there wasn't a water source. I've gone back there because I sprayed compost tea on it. And yeah, so water is very, very important. And that's
So they
it was really
still
cool.
need water.
Yeah, but what's cool about compost tea is it's water and
right.
nutrients and the life form. Like it's just like
Okay.
super
It's the
it's comprehensive.
trifecta.
Yes, the trifecta. I love the number 3.
Have you tried to grow cannabis?
That's I was
Yes,
gonna
of
ask.
course.
Do you
We-
work
so
with any
very
cannabis
successfully
companies?
has.
Yeah, cool.
We work with us.
Yeah. Okay, so this is something I think being a young woman business owner, and I have really, I got real when I first got so excited about compost tea, and I was like, yes, the cannabis industry, because one of the people who I looked up to actually was doing that, and he is an older man, and so I started making compost tea, started making connects, having meetings with cannabis growers, and it just always turned into like, I just want to date you, or like, I don't take you seriously, or I'm just objectifying. Like, so I have actually just stopped even talking to
You're
cannabis growers because
kidding me.
what I think is actually more impactful for the soil is working with the ground. Of course, I would
Yeah.
love to help advocate for organically grown cannabis, but at the end of the day, that's a paradigm shift that the grower themselves has to go through, and I'm kind of done.
Yeah.
I was extending myself a lot to maybe like get into something, and it would go nowhere. So yes, we have this really magical greenhouse in Gold Hill, and we do grow, but we grow so many other plants as well.
Yeah.
Like it's yeah. Look, you should come up sometime.
I was gonna say field trip. Yeah.
Yeah, we
What
love
about
to.
with like mushroom? Like, how does your like compost tea, I guess, support like the mycelium
Yeah.
network we're discussing?
And when you say fungal, what kind of mushrooms are you using in mycelium?
Okay, so how about for this example, we'll talk about some of the culinary mushrooms we have going in the greenhouse. So we did a little wood chip inoculation,
Okay.
which is where you take a liquid life of mushrooms, put it on some wood chips, and spread it around wherever you want it to be. And even if they don't fruit necessarily, they're still creating mycelium. Mycelium's really excellent at distributing resources and sensing what other life forms need. So that's a really special component that I like, because I feel, again, it's like letting something else do the work for you that's probably better at their job than you are.
Yes.
So when the
Evolution.
environment is right, we have many different beds. I don't know, like a dozen beds, maybe more, throughout the greenhouse. Some of them won't fruit mushrooms, but others, with the right conditions, totally will. And we just get delicious culinary mushrooms all day long.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What kind of mushrooms are you growing?
We're growing garden giants.
Oh, okay. I haven't even heard of that.
Wine cap. is
Wine
another
cap.
name
It
for
kind
them.
of mild, like portobello-ish, but not even that flavorful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so what makes our compost tea fungal is connecting back to Zach with Boulder Mushroom is he gives us liquid mycelium that I just add to my tea. Cool. And I also in the past have used mycorrhizal powders. And these are types of fungi that are specifically good with growing with plants. Like they actually create a relationship with the plant root and extend the plant root. Whereas oyster mushrooms and some other mushrooms, they will work in the soil, but they're not necessarily directly interacting with the plant, if that makes sense.
Okay,
and that's
they're
like
not
a
like the
whole
messenger.
I don't know if Zach like went into that with y'all.
Not too much.
Yeah, the fungi in the soil is something that I really am trying to bring awareness to because it's where we live in Colorado, it's very dry, so it's not very abundant. And once you introduce fungi to like someone's yard that is rampant with weeds or something, the weeds, they live off bacteria. They can't eat fungi. So we're like making this person's soil fungal dominant. And then the weeds are like, oh, shit, my food is
can't
gone.
survive,
They
yeah.
can't survive. And it's definitely, that's a slower process. So that's maybe like one whole year of giving this person these applications of the more fungal dominant tea.
And you
Okay.
just do it 3 times a
Yeah,
year.
a year. Yeah, or if like someone needs it more, we'll do it more.
What's
But-
funny about that to me is even though that's a slower process, putting Roundup on a lawn or something, to me, not even judging the product, just purely from the standpoint of, is this product effective?
It destroys
Is this the
everything.
best product on the market? Right. It slowly destroys your lawn and your lawn's ecosystem so that it can't support itself, crumbles your soil to freaking nothing. Like, when you think about what's a 3-year process, when you're picking which path you choose, I would much rather take the slow, nourishing path
Yeah.
than the
Regenerative.
quick, destructive path.
Yeah. Because, I mean, then you have to rebuild the whole thing.
That's
it's like
literally- You have to
start from
antibiotics
scratch. It's
versus
like more work.
probiotics.
Definition
Yeah.
of America needing to like change our perspective of like, no, we need to not go the quick destructive path. We need to go the longer, like
Yeah.
regenerative path. I feel like in so many different scenarios.
It's like the entire 20th century was defined by
quick and
destructive.
quick and hard and
Absolutely. And I mean,
yeah.
ammonium nitrate was just a leftover.
that's
from
what
World
we
War II.
talked
Yeah.
about with Zach that I was like blew my
yeah.
mind.
Yeah. So, and it's still being to this day, it needs natural gas to be made. So right now the price of ammonium nitrate has doubled and farmers all over America cannot afford it. And
I've been hearing this on the news.
Yes. And Russia and COVID, it
Yep.
all affected it. And so it's almost like the market is like opening up
Yeah.
for things like this
Yeah.
to come through, because there's many, like compost tea is just one of many, many amazing soil amendments that we have pretty easy access to if you just look a little harder.
Yeah, so if we were able to get away from ammonium nitrates and like towards compost tea nationally, like say like 90% of American agriculture uses compost tea instead of these destructive ways, what would it look like? How would a climate change and these sorts of things?
It would look like us hiring a team of excellent lawyers, because there's a whole industry that doesn't want this to be prevalent.
Yep.
Monsanto.
And you can really see it
Bayer.
when you Google
DuPont.
compost tea. Like, if you talk to humans who have had experiences with compost tea, ferments, these ways of nourishing your soil and your plants, they're like, oh yeah, of course. It's just second nature, common sense to them. If you Google it, like your first 100 results, if not more, are like, is compost tea a scam?
A myth.
Compost tea doesn't work. Yeah. This is about compost
my
tea.
God.
Throw away your compost tea. It's all just negative bullshit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to take that as a little hat tip that we're on a good track, honestly.
And
Yep.
Wow.
truly
They're
a lot
trying to turn out some negative PR to like hush it down.
SEO is working on
Yeah.
Google, yeah.
and a lot of people will ask me
I
like,
think that shows effort. People paid for that to happen.
Yeah.
Many people.
Right, it's like
Yeah.
for
Oh, yeah.
millennia this has been happening, this compost tea.
so
likely.
long, like before it was even documented.
Wow.
Is
yeah.
it like the first official like fertilizer that people were like making for
People,
plants?
they would call it like manure tea, liquid manure, like because that is something that has been just inherently known, right? Like think about it. What we eat goes through our system, comes out. They did that with animals and just used it for
Yeah.
fertilizer. So then they started turning it into liquid form to make it more concentrated and make it go farther, and make it also for different uses, right? Spraying versus spreading compost. Like there's a lot of ways that compost tea is just phenomenal for application over spreading compost. And so
like
a lot of
you're
people
watering your
don't use
lawn.
they don't use
the
compost
ease
because
of
it's
it.
so hard to spread. But people will ask me like a lot, what's your background? Are you a microbiologist? And I'm just like, no, I just went to see you and started making compost tea. I started working with it, and I still use a lot of methods and same ingredients that I used from the very beginning just to stay consistent. I mean, obviously things have evolved and the research is always changing. Like we did not know that the soil was alive until the 1980s. Wow. And I'm not even exaggerating.
Once we as a society killed it all, we were like, oh shit.
No, because we couldn't see it under a microscope. We couldn't see it.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a testament to seeing is believing in this way.
Oh, yeah.
Not just, I think the soil is giving me something. I feel that it's giving me something. People had to see it and they identified the microorganisms, right? And like, so this is actually pretty new research. And I feel that we are part of that research in what we're doing. It's really exciting.
The funny thing about the truth, and I think we all know this,
Yes.
is that maybe especially as women, that kind of feminine truth that isn't necessarily logically based, you just like feel it in your bones and your whole being.
In your uterus.
And seriously, like you feel that something is true even if you don't fully understand it.
Yeah.
And like you see this especially in like pregnant women who like they keep their mouth shut, but they're like, yeah, I knew it was a girl the whole time, or like whatever. And like you can see that
There's
like serious.
a knowing.
So
There is wisdom comes.
there is
The mother.
as much as I am interested in that masculine kind of truth that's like, oh, look, a protozoa, a flagellate. There are this many of each type of life form. Look at the slides on the microscope.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool that supports what I already know in my body. But, like, what I know in my body is so much richer. I love that is supporting what I already know to bring it to the surface. But the truth tends to surface in time anyway. So I'm not really concerned about all those things catching
that's
up.
how
I'm
I
just
feel
like,
too.
let's just do this stuff that's obviously working. That's enough. That's the living proof to me.
Yeah, 'cause a lot of people call permaculture.
But it's meeting. It's coming together. Like the logic is meeting what we already know.
Yeah, intuition and logic are finally coming together with the right.
They'll call permaculture like a pseudoscience. Like, right? It's like things. It's
Really?
Yeah, like that. It's not really like proven scientifically, or that and it's fine.
Yeah,
People,
can you explain more about living soil and like, because people say like
Define
living
permaculture.
soil as well in the cannabis industry. Living soil is now like a buzzword that people use, but it's like if you're saying that the soil's already alive, like with all of
Most
these,
of the time, yes.
like microorganisms and like bacteria, fungi.
Like unless you kill it, it's living. kind of thing.
Well, it's like people will test. Like, say, an area of soil that people walk on a lot, compaction.
So, but
versus
like,
a
how far
forest
down
floor.
are you going? I guess
It's just
When
the
you're-
topsoil. The topsoil
So
is
how
the
many
first
inches?
couple inches.
Okay.
Topsoil, and they say, like the scientists have said, it takes 100 years to build topsoil, and that's naturally that's
1 inch?
Yes, of
Oh my
topsoil,
God.
and that is nature doing it, which I believe, but with this
With
knowledge of
stewardship.
stewardship and working with the land and what's around it, we can mimic these ways that nature drops its decaying plant matter, and then rain and just this, we can that's what I really feel like compost tea. What do you call compost tea sometimes? The fake rain? What is no?
What do you think? I call it so many things.
Yeah,
I have lots of pet names for the things I adore.
It's like we're painting a landscape and making it rain for the plants, and the plants are
Making it rain
they're
for the
so,
plants.
They're so excited.
It's like a time machine for the plants. It's like, 100 years? Let's shorten that
Some
to like
people who
one.
don't get it, I say it's kombucha for plants and soil, because people understand that we need to
there, like,
balance our bodies.
prebiotics
Yes.
too in it?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
it's like all prebiotics is its own thing too. So this is more the probiotic.
Okay. Wait,
But there
does
is-
soil
the
need?
prebiotic is what feeds the probiotic. So if that's like putting down like kelp and oyster shells and I'm trying to talk in like terms
Or
of
during the
cannabis
brew
growing.
process, there's more prebiotic stuff happening.
Yes.
Okay.
Because all
Then
the
when
little
it's
microbes are
finished.
eating each other within the food web.
Okay,
And they're
so like once you
balancing
put
each
it all
other.
in, that's prebiotic, and then once it starts stewing and like bubbling, then that's probiotic. It's like
But it's also at the same, like whatever's already in the soil, our compost tea is just going to be food for that. Because it's not necessarily like, oh, this little microbe that I'm spraying is going to live in this soil. Like so many things could happen to it. And
Okay. That's what I'm wondering.
yeah, but it's still food. Okay, none of it is a bad thing.
Like nothing's going to waste.
Yes, nature will
Right. An
use
eagle wants a fresh meal, but a vulture doesn't care. Same thing in the soil.
okay,
It will go to use.
I love that.
yeah.
This is so interesting. I've literally never even heard. I mean, I've heard about it, but just kind of what you're saying is literally just see these random things. That's like, what are the myths about
The
compost
pseudoscience
tea.
of compost tea.
And I just like
it's
thought it was
fear-based
another
thing, but
There
it's
is
just feeding,
testing under a
loving.
microscope is important. But what's also important is me not using dirty compost sources. If I'm using a legitimate, clean, biologically active compost source.
Yeah, so
then
where
my
do
compost,
you get your
So the man
stuff?
that made the compost tea brewer that I use, it's called a GOT, Greater Earth Organics.
Okay.
And I have been sourcing from him ever since I bought my equipment, because since there's not very many compost tea brewers on the market, there's not tons of people who are even selling things. And so he was just one of those people. And he actually worked with Elaine Ingham to create this compost tea brewer. And Elaine Ingham is like the woman who put compost tea on the map. And she's super well known.
Cool.
She has a really cool company called Soil Food Web Inc. And you can also send soil samples and your compost tea samples to
cool.
her.
Or you can get educated. She has some cool courses.
I actually was just in California where she lives, and I got to see the mountains where she lives. And it's really cool because I've been taking her courses, and she's the one, like I learned that whole thing about weeds they feed on bacteria, they don't feed on fungi. And I started implementing that, right? So there's just not that many people to really look to.
right that are like spreading the knowledge.
Yeah, except if you're actually doing it. So a lot of people will question me, like, do you test your stuff under a microscope, right? Because all they really know about the tea.
Yeah. Are you getting it third party tested, as we say in the cannabis industry?
And sometimes compost can have salmonella or E. coli in it. And when we're brewing that in the tea, like, we are just heightening that pathogen even more, feeding it even more. And that's really dangerous. That will kill plants. But I don't use actually manure-based compost for a lot of it, just to avoid that.
would come through.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Salmonella and E. coli would come through with animals. But we went to a really fascinating compost conference in Austin, Texas.
Tell us about it.
And in one of the workshops was about them decomposing entire carcasses.
Oh.
And how to actually turn it into a safe form of compost. And I was just fascinated because I'm like, yeah, we can't just keep like running away from, or not running away, but it's mostly if I work with a farmer and they have manure, like I'll make a custom tea with their manure and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'm not scared of it, but a lot of people are. And it's just funny, people always think compost is like poop tea.
Yeah.
Like,
Well-
you make poop tea. Like, I've definitely gotten a lot of different, like, kind of negative connotations instead of being like, no, this is like the juice of the earth. I am like the nectar.
Right. But what is it all like? I'm thinking like fruits and vegetable. Like,
Plant-based. So any plant at that point of compost.
Can I make compost tea with my household compost?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely
Yeah.
can.
Wow.
but
Yeah.
can't you not put it, you can't put in like chicken wings or whatever. Like,
It depends what kind of composting you're doing. Some kind of composting, it can degrade everything. And it's because they're harnessing these certain microbes that are well suited
breaking
for
everything
breaking that down. Yes,
Okay.
in a balanced way that it's, because what's really happening when a pathogen comes is that means that the beneficial organisms are either missing or they weren't there to begin with. Or so, and then the
being
pathogen.
outcompeted. So the E.
Yes.
coli is winning
Yeah.
more or less, and that's not really what we
Just
want.
like a virus or something
Right.
does in our bodies, right?
Yeah.
So our bodies are so synced up to what's happening in the soil. And so that's a really great way. I tell people a probiotic life shot for your plants.
Wow.
Like how you
I
like
love
truly
that.
kombucha for your plants.
Yeah.
Like,
I really like that
So-
little tagline.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was probably on the lighter side of that conference. And then the other side of it was just realizing how much the waste industry really wants compost to be their product. Whereas I would like to see compost federally recognized as an amendment to soil and not an in-house asset to agriculture, because that means we could then go to farmers and sell it in a way that they can pay it off with subsidies, or they can pay it off with other ways that they receive money. And right now they can't. They can make it on farm as an asset in-house.
Oh.
But okay, so that said, the waste industry knows this. And they're like, great, there's no standard for compost right now.
Yeah.
And I got to see one of the best waste management facilities in Texas, honestly, how they make their compost. And it was like chemically treated pallet wood, shredded, not broken down. They add some leaves because they need some extra carbon sources. And then they spray it with liquid nitrogen. And they sell it back to the public like it's not a synthetic and just mystery chemical soup.
Wow, and they just throw the word compost on it.
And they throw the word compost on it because there's no standard around what
like,
that is.
How is that legal? Like,
it's because things are only legal to the degree which they're defined.
right.
Yeah.
And as much as that would be cool for it to be government recognized, I also realized, like, they're not even competition in a way.
Yeah.
Like, they're not even competing in the same arena. Like, I actually don't feel threatened by it if something happens to support it.
But what about the fact that they're like basically lying to people? Like,
and perpetuating really bad like practices.
Yeah, because some people
agriculturally.
will buy compost from these big trash companies and be like, my garden died, or like it was
trash
horrible.
companies are known for being aggressively competitive.
Yeah.
Like all over, they kind of have like a kind of mafia.
I was gonna say,
like
mob ties,
energy
waste
around
mafia.
them. So, and like, I don't hate them for that either. They're just like, how much can we do with this? We're here. We have the effort. If we exert, like, what can we get back? Like, great. I'm all here for that energy, but I'm like, you could also do a better job.
Right. Just like
You could try a little.
I mean, like in Boulder, so in Boulder we have compost like pickup and everything every 2 weeks.
and that's like
where does that-
industrial.
So that goes to
compost.
EcoCycle,
Yeah.
which is actually like a good local
better, yeah.
composting. They
So
actually
do you know
sell,
how they do it?
I haven't actually toured their facility, but I recently met the owner, and we're gonna spray some wood chip piles with a fungal inoculant for him.
Cool.
And
Nice.
yeah, they're actually, I went to school at CU when composting like became a thing in Boulder.
Yeah.
And I petitioned because they were like, we're just only going to do it at single residence. So that meant every single multi-unit, every apartment was not going to have compost. And what also was funny about that campaign was that they first made it legal for businesses to compost. And the businesses complained so much and said, if we have to compost, then the residents do too. So I petitioned for everyone to be able to have access to composting, not just single residence homes and businesses, and it got through. So,
Yes.
but in that
Thank
way,
you.
to me, though, I think there's such a better way to compost. I don't think that you just putting it in a bin and someone picking it up is actually the best way. There's so
Yeah.
many resources that go into that. I know that not everyone has access to a yard or even like a worm
tumbler
bin
or something.
Yeah.
because worms just eat your food waste. Like when you put them immediately in there, there's no.
Worms are great composters.
Yes. So I just think that we need to do truly from going to this big compost conference and seeing these billion-dollar compost companies, and they're just the craziest huge, crazy piles. And like this needs to be just more small scale. We need to just have little people who are running their little compost systems. And we also met people at the conference that do that as well. And they are just small scale, and they're growing to the capacity they can. And so it's just like there's just different management that can be done with composting.
How many
To make it better.
How many attendees go to a compost conference? Just
It was
Yeah.
pretty big. I don't know how many people.
yeah, it sounds like it's
Like 5,000, 10,000.
It was kind of like research for a lot of
conference
employees,
center-
right?
so cool.
They got sent there by their
It
company.
was interesting. It definitely was a lot of like businessmen who have definitely never touched the soil in their lives.
Like 98% men.
Just like in
And
time.
when we would run
I
into
hate
women,
that.
it would be like,
You're like,
Right.
oh my God, hey,
yo,
a
we
female.
bonded with, I'm pretty sure like every single woman there. Pretty much.
Yeah, and the women were
I love that,
the
though.
disruptors. They weren't holding up the status quo. Like there was actually a group of women we really bonded with who started a company around. If you think of their name, shout it out.
Okay.
But they started a company around qualifying whether disposable products that say compostable are actually compostable, to what degree, and putting data behind it.
Yes.
I
And
love that.
By her standards, she's like, most compostable things aren't compostable. I would actually advise these vendors who are selling these cups or whatever, tell your clients, put it in the landfill and let it decay there. That's actually a better path than putting it into an industrial compost system. Like these things you really kind of don't expect.
Whoa.
Yeah.
They're called Compost Manufacturing Alliance.
Shout out. Shout out.
These girls, they were super cool.
Where are they based out of?
It doesn't say on here and I don't remember.
That's okay.
But it's pretty big, right? It's not.
Yeah, they're doing
They were
things.
doing large scale.
Hell yeah.
So that's kind of what we went there just to see what was going on with the compost industry. And they definitely, that the conference supported more big business and not so much small scale like what we're doing. And no one knew about liquid compost. I didn't even call it compost tea. And, I'm so glad I didn't. And I used the word liquid but they still had no idea what I was talking about.
Funny. So we're both in this same workshop room at the same time. And presenter, she's like, oh, we're going to go through these different slides. You guys shout out which form of compost, because there are many forms of compost. Which form of compost would be the best application for this? And she brought something up where liquid was obviously the way to go. Like in my mind,
It was turf. It was
I am
grass.
happy to pick up handfuls or shovelfuls of heavy ass compost and spread it around. But that's why do that work if you're not impacting
If you can let a
in a
hose do
better
it.
way, right?
Yeah.
If you can do it in a way that's less effortful and more impact possibly. Anyway, and she was just like, oh yeah, I don't think that's right. No, moving on. It was very funny. She truly just had never heard of it and was trying to cover her tracks almost.
Oh, wow.
It was amusing. And then some bro that we ended up being friends with later, he was like, yeah, compost tea. And we were like, we're talking to that guy later.
Nice.
But she told me that she asked me, and truly it wasn't in a snobby way. It was like she was genuinely asking, wouldn't the compost tea just sit on the surface? And I was I just said no, because I didn't even know how to I'm like, it's a liquid. It will go into the soil. It was.
If anything,
water
it's
channels
more
down wherever
I think we
you
threw
allow
her
it.
off.
Have you heard of
hard.
groundwater?
We
Yeah.
threw her off hard.
Yeah.
So wild. This is so funny because it's such an
my
old
gosh.
technique.
Yeah, and
it's the first technique.
It almost makes me not want to go back to conferences like that because I
Yeah.
feel like I'm leaking ancient secrets to these people. And I'm
Right.
like, you guys figure it out on your own. Read a book. I'm not giving it away to you anymore.
That is so funny.
Leaking ancient. A lot of people ask me, did you invent compost tea or you have it patented or whatever? I'm like, no.
You
this
should
is-
try.
Wait, can you
this-
try?
I think you could patent it.
At least just a formula, a proprietary blend.
your
that I have.
formula. You
Yeah, I
should.
could.
You should 100%.
Right.
know.
It's take it from everyone
I don't
else.
really,
No.
I don't feel strongly about that. It's open source information.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
that's what it is.
True gardeners, organic
Yeah.
farmers know exactly the soil is their black gold.
They don't need some corporation to tell them
the
that
soil
it
is their gold, and that
Wow.
is they do anything to protect that, because so going back to the connection of how soil relates to our bodies. So if you're eating a nutrient deficient vegetable, fruit, whatever, then your body is not receiving that nutrition it actually needs, and that means that the soil is deficient of that. So when you're actually balancing the soil, the nutrients, the life, that just the overall health, then we can grow healthier plants for us to eat and us to have more nutritionally balanced bodies.
Yeah.
And children and.
And we take it
Norman.
in not just through what we eat. If you have your hands in the soil, particularly some healthy black soil, if you've ever done it before, there's a nice smell. You're like, that's fun. I'm in the soil. You can smell this particular smell that comes through. And that is actually microbes coming through your respiratory system into your body, increasing your immunity. We are meant to work together. We have been agriculturist or permaculturist, probably more likely, for a very long time as a species. We have a deep relationship with it,
Well,
beyond
especially
what we
as
even understand.
the women, because hunter-gatherers, most likely the women were doing the
deep in the soil.
farming and gathering and whatever.
I mean,
foraging.
even men out tracking, observing, breathing in the forest life. Same thing, if you go out into the forest and you step on a bunch of duff and pine needles, you smell it and it smells so good. Yeah.
I know, I get to, I'm always like,
Right. The soil's
That's
spongy.
that life in the air.
Yeah.
It's like
All
a
your
mattress.
senses telling you
Yeah.
that this is right.
Yeah, well, that's
Yes.
this soil's so undisturbed. That's actually how soil, when we say compost, you can think of the forest soil as nature's compost.
Cycling it
Yes,
through.
compost is
Yeah.
just a word made for us to take care of our waste. And if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think
And-
of compost as a verb?
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
It can describe the process.
Yeah.
And also relating all of this to our cycles and, even our thoughts and our mental health about, And we just came out of winter and we're into spring. And so winter is where really the composting is happening and the decomposition. And we do the fungal sprays in the fall specifically for that. And I call it the preservation tea because it is preserving the soil life, because it is just because it's winter does not mean that there's not activity going on. There's actually the most activity happening in the soil under the snow. And it's being so protected by the snow, if you think about it. And so when the soil is just it's like protected, it is doing its best work. And so that's kind of like the same for us, right? When we are going deep and inward with ourselves and composting old habits and thoughts and limiting beliefs and things like that. We can come out in the spring and bloom. And that's when the microbial life is really interacting with the plants. They're not just interacting with themselves in the soil anymore.
I learned this really great fun fact.
Yeah.
Because I've been like fascinated with Alaska recently.
I want to go.
Where it's really, really cold, there's this thing called permafrost where the ground remains frozen past these yearly seasonal cycles in its own kind of unique cycle. Like, it's not permanent truly, but they call it permafrost. And it can go like 2 miles down into the ground. It can go super deep. And the plant life and the bacterial life and the fungal life that is in that soil, when it actually does defrost, it can come back to life. Like, it is not
It's in like
dying. It's just hibernating in this really big way.
it's like cryogenically frozen kind of.
And yeah, when I think about like the womb space of our bodies and the womb space of the earth, like this idea of like fertile black soil being really inviting, it's like the same thing with our wombs. Like, they tell you when they're ready. Like, if pussy is emotionally, physically, energetically ready, she will be dripping for you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's so the same thing with the soil. Like, if the soil is crackly and dry, like it's not ready. I work at a bar sometimes, and I have this one customer. Shout out to Butch. He'll never hear this. But he came in the other day, and he's usually like a real grumpy Gus. Just never a positive thing to say. But he came out with a smile on his face and a little spring in his step, and I'm thinking,
He got some pussy.
That was my thought too. No.
he did in his own kind of like unattuned shadow masculine way, in the sense that he came and he goes, "Ooh, I just tilled my garden. I put in so much work. I dug right in and I fought the ground and and I want to honor the side of the masculine that's like, yo, let's like put in the work and we'll accomplish amazing things. Yes, but also like, pay the fuck attention. The soil was not ready for you.
Hadn't rained yet.
I just fucked that soil.
It's like raping the land.
Yeah,
I
and
wonder
like-
how he feels now that we had this like big 3-day.
Oh yeah, the rain
in
finally
Boulder.
I know it would have helped him too.
It would have helped him. Right. So just like there's this element of like, we can just listen. And that's one thing I actually love about cannabis that brought me back to the soil was I'm such a like fast-minded, grew up in the city kind of girl. Like, it's really nice to have something to just be like, hey, maybe sit the fuck down for a minute.
Yes.
And I'm like,
Cannabis
the grass
does
is pretty. You're right. Oh my gosh.
Connects you to nature.
It does.
Absolutely.
It slows me down
Yeah.
to a pace where I'm like calm again and not rushing and can perceive and like give to these energies that aren't just human life.
Same. I feel the same way.
Yeah, no, she told me that story the other day, and I was like, you have to. And on the podcast, it's so funny. And some people, like I've loved calling the soil the womb of the earth and all the plants that grow from the soil. And one plant, can carry hundreds of seeds, but it only takes one seed. It's just like so much abundance and fertility. Like when we are out spraying compost tea, we like call ourselves fertility goddesses. We're bringing our fertility to your land.
I love that.
And like we really are on this super in-tuned feminine guide to the soil. And it's so connected to our sexual journeys and our expressions, and it's just so beautiful.
It's like
That is so lovely.
life finds a way, but like help it along, and it tells you if
Help
it
it
wants
along.
to. Yeah,
Life lives on
So
life.
I want to bring up one of my favorite herbal plants
please.
because it's kind of novelty and fun. It does have a practical application too. But we brought these mints that have spilanthes in them.
Wait.
Spilanthes
Shout out
is a type
Flint
of
mints.
daisies. Yeah, shout out to Flint mints.
They
in
call it
New
the
York.
electric daisy.
Yeah, electric daisy is probably my favorite name for it. I think it describes it the best. But we're
which
going to
one
give
has
SK
it?
one of these mints.
They all-
I have
every
not
single
tried
one.
these.
It's called,
Yeah.
That's what makes your mouth
Flint's
water.
mints. So Flint's mouth-watering mints. And yeah, I have not tried these.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, so it's in the mouth.
I'm going with
Let's
cinnamon
just give it a
ginger.
minute.
The
Yeah.
cinnamon ginger is so good. It's for toothaches.
Weird. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
It definitely has a very.
Isn't it intense? It's
I'm
intense.
feeling weird. This feels weird. Like my whole body feels
It's like
weird.
a buzzing. A buzzing.
I'm
Whoa.
gonna get on that
Wait, but
train.
why is
This
it-
is crazy. Yeah.
So why is it not listed?
Because they don't have to.
Probably because of that proprietary thing, and they don't have to. Things in small amounts you don't have to list according to the FDA. So they have to list like what sugar they used
The
in this.
Whoa.
Oh yeah.
It's like tingly.
It's wild.
You're like, what?
My mouth really is watering. My tongue is. Yeah, this is some dental stuff.
So
for
power
sure.
of plants. It's like these plants evolved alongside us. Like we definitely stewarded a plant like this because when you're out in the woods and you have a toothache and you see one of these, you know that you can bite down on that flower head and be cool till you can figure it out. So I love plants like this because they do feel like long-time relationships that have been growing with humans.
And now time for a quick commercial break. MJ Arsenal makes mini rigs and bongs perfect for your next adventure. Why mini rigs? Less air equals more flavor. Sacrifice nothing and elevate the ordinary session with MJ Arsenal.
Use code McCarterGetsHigh to save at mjarsenal.com.
Other cool flowers, if you guys listening want to make some tea at home, like a really simple ferment, a lot of people are dandelion haters. And, aesthetics to each your own, of course. But if you take those little dandelion flowers, put them in some water.
And the stems.
And the stems, maybe
Whole-
pinch
whole
of sugar.
plant. Root,
Okay.
everything.
Yeah, you can do the root. Make a little ferment out of them. You can give some life to your yard.
Wow.
Wait,
doing
what
right
else
with
do
that.
you put in it though?
A little bit of time. It needs some time to ferment.
So this is the
No water?
ferment. No, water.
Oh.
Water, definitely.
Oh,
Sorry.
I forgot the main ingredient.
Yeah, water. That's the fermented plant juices or fermented plant extracts or green manure teas. There's
Okay.
a lot of different names.
But how long do you let
And
it sit?
Like 2 weeks.
Okay.
But you can
I
do
wanna
less
do
than
this.
that. So it's actually really fascinating. The plant, so dandelion specifically, and this also will segue into the steaming. Dandelions have really deep tap roots. So they are actually reaching parts of the soil that you're cracking
This mint is still having its effects on me. Anyway, sorry.
no, you're totally fine. I
Use
love
some
it.
water.
It's so cute. It's so cute. Yeah.
I do feel like a little kid. Like I just smoked my
the
first joint or
first
something.
time-
I'm like, you did. Over here.
Yeah. The first time I ate it, I was like, I don't know if I like this. I gotten way used to it.
She
now.
was on a client call for compost tea. I could see her just like squirming in her skin. And I kept thinking, like, just spit it out. But she was too
Fair.
focused. That didn't occur to her.
Nice. Hell yeah.
So
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Dandelions, electric daisies, all of it. So yeah, dandelions have really deep tap roots, and that's also why like people are like, oh, they won't leave,
Yeah.
because they are reaching areas of the soil that hold nutrients that your grass roots are getting like not very far in the soil at all compared to a dandelion.
Wow.
And so the dandelion is like, yeah, we're reaching the good stuff, and then they're surviving. And like I said though, dandelions I think don't like nitrogen. I think this could be wrong. I think that's thistle. Thistle doesn't like nitrogen. So
Okay.
when thistle is growing, that means that your soil is deficient in nitrogen. So if you just start like making a compost tea, it's nitrogen rich, which is not hard at all because compost is just inherently nitrogen rich. Then you can see your thistle will like
Disappear.
not disappear, but just not be able to be as strong
Wow.
and thriving. And so you can actually rip it out or, do. We're starting this new steam weeding service where we are killing weeds with steam or
And
controlling
again,
weeds with steam.
super old school. Like grandma would have a tea kettle or boil some water and throw it
dump it
on
on the plant.
unwanted plants.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
This is just a way of doing it where we can do bigger areas.
So with the dandelion, going back to the dandelion ferment, is that when you remove that dandelion and you're putting in that water, that means you are harnessing all those nutrients that were in its plant, in the plant cell walls. and in its roots and in its flower.
Which is tapping
And
into the
yes.
deepest good stuff.
So a lot of weeds are actually super amazing fertilizers. Because weeds are like the most evolved plants. And the reason why they even most of the time grow is because soil does not like to be bare. Soil is just trying to protect itself, right? The microbes need shelter. They need a home. They need water. They need a partner, AKA the plant, to help them survive, right? So weeds are just really evolved ancient plants that have like, we survive in super degraded soil, or like they don't need like the fancy compost or whatever.
Wow.
Like they just grow. And you'll notice this, like now that I'm telling you about this, like notice where you see weeds, and it's like shitty areas, like where the soil is just like obviously not productive in other ways. And so with the steam weeding thing, something I want to promote is that we can collect people's weeds at the same time as steaming them, and then we can turn them into fertilizer and add that into our compost tea. So that's just another additive that we would add in.
That's
it.
amazing.
Yeah, it's like a full circle thing. And also just bringing awareness, because, this killing the weeds and the compost tea is really just a contrast of like life and death, but also like how we can bridge that together is actually bringing awareness to that weeds actually bring lots of life. A lot of them are food. A lot of them are medicine. And so I'm really excited.
Yeah.
We're about to launch this service this year, the steaming weeds.
Hell yeah.
Cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and Volta is going to to be really running that part of the
Pioneering
biz.
of that.
Goddess
Yeah.
of destruction.
Yeah. And I'm the goddess of fertility. Oh, we both are.
Nice. Light and dark.
Hell yeah.
Light and dark.
Life and death.
Yes, it cycles.
Yeah,
It
totally.
cycles
It
that we
is.
go through.
Can't have one without the other. It's like
So yeah, I just wanted to mention
Yay.
that like really exciting service.
Wait, what's your company called again? I'm sorry.
Edaphic Solutions.
Edaphic.
And edaphic
Solutions.
is from the word edaphology, and that's the soil science of how soil interacts with living organisms. So that means plants, microbes, animals to humans.
Yeah.
And so I kind of took the word edaphic from edaphology. And then the solutions part is because compost tea is a liquid solution, but also it's a long-term soil health solution. Like I tell clients that you might not need me to spray your yard forever. Once we build up your soil food web and you're not disturbing it, it will take care of itself. The weeds will most of the time take care of themselves. But it's also just instilling in people that like a couple weeds here and there is not the end of the world, and that we just actually kind of have to come back in harmony with maybe not having a perfect yard and rewilding things.
Right,
a
because
little
that
bit.
was ridiculous and unattainable anyway.
But if we're going to kill weeds, why not do it with steam? It's super fast and effective, efficient. The weed just stays. Like we don't remove the weed, and so it disintegrates and puts the carbon right back in the soil. So yeah, it's really cool. It's like an Australian technology that's also I feel like we're on the forefront of and bringing to people. So yeah.
Nice. What have you, like, with the cannabis you've grown, have you noticed anything, like, with using the compost tea as its food, I guess? Like, have you harvested before with using your techniques already?
Yeah, definitely. I like how gentle it is compared to other nutrients. Like weed really likes nitrogen, and that is something you can go overboard with really easily, and you see it come through as like burns
chemical
visible
burn
on the plant.
Yeah.
Right, and that's too much nitrogen. So tea is something kind of fun because you can feed it like it's water, right? So you can bring it out with your watering cycle and just gently add life to the soil.
Okay.
You could still do other amendments on top of that for sure, and we did in our harvest. But the tea's just so gentle. It's so funny. Something can like work so quickly and also be gentle. Like it truly blows my mind. It's so like contradictory almost. But yeah, every time I had extra tea, I could just totally feed it to them and know that they'd be great. It wouldn't
and
be
it's
overkill.
not like overfeeding.
What was I going to say about what you're just talking about, darn it?
Uh-oh.
You
The
can't
dabs
like
took a thought.
overdo it like you can with chemical nutrients and like
Yeah.
nitrate-based nutrients.
Yeah. So I guess I never the living soil
be
is
hard to.
Well, the living
Right.
soil is a different.
You'd have to
Overwater.
try, like really try.
Yeah, the living soil is like you're seeing it as a bank for all these like amazing resources that you want your plant to have. Whereas the salt-based fertilizers are just like if your plant doesn't uptake that fertilizer soon, then it can leach out, or like it doesn't actually play a role. It just stays in the system. Whereas like the compost tea nutrients are being constantly recycled and nothing is really going to waste. There's a lot of waste happening when you're just feeding these plants these soluble.
You're just like
nitrogen.
dumping a bunch of multivitamins on it and being like, hope it
Yes.
uptakes, as opposed to like, let me build this very
Let the plant
nutrient-
decide,
yeah.
I need this. And the plant like alerts the microbes. They send out.
And then the microbes can talk to each other.
So what they, so why people, I don't know if you've heard, like people make compost tea and they put molasses, so they put sugar in it. Or people just even put molasses like on their soil.
Okay.
So that's mimicking what plants do. Plants send out these things called exudates, which are sugars from the plant itself. And so when people like talk about the plant makes its own food, it doesn't actually. Plants do not, they like photosynthesis, what it does is it creates those sugars so that the plant can interact with the soil. And so when those sugars are being released, the microbes are like, oh my gosh, so excited. And they come and they flock and they live at the plant roots or they live on like with the plant. And then they start doing that cycle with the plant. So it's something like so inherently known in a plant. And we're kind of disturbing that, right? We're just like, take this. And the plant's just like, like, what am I? You know,
We're going to take all this.
Well,
and
if they're
give you
in
this
super
and-
degraded soil, the plant's going to love it. But if you are taking care and stewarding your soil and building it up and protecting it and watering it and all these things we talked about.
Yeah.
Wow, it's like steward
quality
your
of the-
soil, don't fuck it. Like,
Don't rape
fuck
it.
it, right.
Or like fuck it right.
Force feed
make
it.
love to it. Yeah.
Well, so this goes back to like our just connection to land in general and how people in I would say like in the United States history of just raping and pillaging land and the people that are on the land. Doing that to indigenous cultures for years. And so it's all really interconnected. And so I feel like the ways that people...
And we're trying to unlearn.
Yeah, they unconsciously interact with the soil in this way. It's like a programming.
Yeah, it's like Western civilization has primed us to do this. Like, I mean, as you were talking about like how Britain lawns and all that, it's like...
Right. Change happens slowly, but it does happen. Like I do see even like this designation around cannabis wording that's like living soil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't say much about what is happening. It's like saying non-dairy milk. Like who cares what it's not? What is it?
Yeah.
Tell me what it is. Right. So like it's more of a contrast between am I doing a substrate-based grow or like an aero hydro kind of thing? Or am I growing in dirt? And like you guys mentioned, there's always going to be some level of life in the soil. And I'm really hoping more people see the relationship of the quality soil to the plant. Having healthy soil just implies you're going to have healthy plants. Like that's got to be happening in these worlds. And again, like we don't really put a lot of focus on cannabis growers because they're a little bit stuck in their ways for the most part. So seeing these people doing living soil, if they're really engaged, even just purely from the business, purely from the monetary side of it, they're going to want good soil. It makes sense to be doing that.
Yeah. Like,
So I feel like we're inching closer, even in these fields that are kind of stubborn, like cannabis can be anyway.
And going back to your question a while ago about what would the world look like if people use compost tea. So this part about why we even want to build the soil is because it draws extra carbon that we have in our atmosphere down and stores it into the soil. And how it does this is called humus, which is a word that human comes from. So we really are from the soil. But what humus is the most like stable form of soil that the microbes in the soil cannot break down. The fungi cannot break this down anymore. So it's just stored carbon that just lives in the soil. And so that is actually something we are doing while we're spraying everyone's lawns and gardens with compost tea, is building their soil so that their soil can hold more carbon for all of us.
yeah.
Wow.
And so it's like the climate mitigation
Totally.
part of it. So that's what it would look like. It would look like a
getting
much
it out of
greener
the
world.
atmosphere.
If we just took care of like 11% of our soils, we could take out all of the extra carbon dioxide that they're saying is putting us over the level.
Wow.
Only 11%.
11%.
Yes. So it like shows you how we just mismanage it and it's actually not.
We've mismanaged our planet
it really
so
kind
far
of bums
to-
me out when I hear people talk about climate like, oh, it's such a crisis and we have fucked everything and we're so powerful as humans that we destroyed everything. I'm like, no, you just got in the way of the process. Get out of the way.
Right.
Like nature will mow you over regardless of how we choose to act right now. There will be hurricanes, fires, and floods to even shit out. Like, just get out of the way and let nature be in its power. Stop interrupting processes.
Wow.
Like, we're already totally equipped to solve this so-called crisis. It's just getting back to practices that are in harmony with what's around us, where we're not interrupting these processes.
And that's what permaculture, and permaculture is also kind of a controversial word because really this Australian man coined this term, permanent agriculture, from just indigenous practices, things that people have been doing for millennia to live in harmony with the planet. And it's not like that is just a huge topic because in permaculture, there is earth care, people care, and then fair share. It's like these three principles. And a lot of people are focused on just the gardening and working with the soil, but the working with the people is just as big a part of it. So it is honoring where this knowledge actually comes from and how we even got here and how we have skewed it. And it's all so deeply intertwined with our culture. And
yeah, I mean, if the whole thing is like having an ecosystem and having a community, looking at our culture, it's kind of gotten away from communal life, communal living.
It's like looked down upon.
Yeah, right? It's like we have isolated ourselves to the point where we're at, and it's, mental health crisis and, end of the planet and all this like really negative shit, but we can get back and we can build it through community. And like you were talking about with like the mycelial networks and everything before, it's...
Yeah,
we're
all
doing
just share
it.
a little bit of knowledge.
We're
and,
doing it.
You take on not only these new skills, but you also kind of see the world in a way that's increasingly more balanced if you're able to keep pulling information in from many sources. And that's what I see happening, at least in the communities I choose to be around. Like, I love that. I see a lot of that. People want to feel engaged with their environment in a way that feels in integrity, where they're not interrupting these processes, where they're not damaging other life forms or what have you. And I really do see it happening. Like, I feel so positive about it.
Yay.
Because, you look at a beautiful landscape, and what is creating that landscape is soil. It are the plants. Like when people are like such nature lovers, you cannot separate it.
Right.
And actually, like what mountains and rock are all being broken down by lichen, which is an algae and a fungi that works together to create lichen. They're actually breaking down the rock to become soil.
Really?
So rock holds, all these minerals, and these minerals are super necessary for the plant life, and they're super necessary for our life. So that's like, it's really cool because we live on the mountains, and just thinking about these mountains are actually being decomposed by all this life all the time. And it's
And you
just
can
this big
see it.
cycle.
It's beautiful. The lichens are like whites, blues,
Gold.
green,
I always say the
gold.
green ones. I'm always attracted to the green.
So that's what
Bacteria on
lichen
the
is.
rocks. That's also eating the rocks.
Wow.
Like, very, very slowly. But
Yeah, but it's happening.
Yeah.
And that's how we get naturally, the soil is replenished with nutrients. So it definitely is. There's some soil that we need to amend with certain nutrients for like the microbial life to even make sense of like the part of like unlocking the nutrients. But most of the time, the soil does have like all the trace minerals and NPK and all those things. It's just not in plant available form, like I said. So
Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
The microbes are really doing so much work for us. They're the underrepresented majority on the planet.
Yeah.
yeah,
Amazing.
The silence.
We
give
honor
them
them.
offerings of liquid kelp,
Yes.
and rice powders, and all the
barley,
yummy
yeah.
things we feed them. Yeah.
Yeast
Wow.
and a beneficial fungi and
Yes.
When I look at a beautiful landscape going forward, I'm just going to see like a whole bunch of life in a way that I never have.
Yeah, there's
Love
this
that.
idea that like if you scoop up a handful of soil, there's a whole galaxy in there. Like the way that maybe
Oh
we
my
can't see
gosh.
our whole Milky Way galaxy without the assistance of optics. Maybe that's the same thing for the soil. And now that we do have the optics to really see these things, we see, oh yeah, it's full of life. It is swarming with
ancient
life.
knowledge.
Yeah.
So we know more about space than we know about the soil. So
Oh my God.
that
What
is-
the hell are we doing?
let's change that. Because there's a galaxy.
Yes.
There's totally a
Let's
galaxy
change
under our
that.
feet.
We need like NASA, but for the soil?
Yeah.
What should we call this agency? Let's pitch it.
Oh my gosh, bees, yes.
Sasa? No, that's not.
Yes.
Sista? Just like emphasize the feminine.
Yeah, no.
Wait, can you just say
Soil
like
is
change,
sexy.
have it be the same acronym, but whatever space, just change it to soil.
Yeah,
National
Aeronautics and soil.
Oh wait, we'll take out fuck.
right.
Never mind, no aeronautics.
We'll work on it.
We gotta
The
change,
NSA.
change the A to something.
National Soil
Wow,
Administration.
we could.
There we go.
Yeah, we have this like new,
NSA, National Soil Association.
Yeah, let's get rid of the actual NSA and
we have this like new funny joke about, you know, that song, like my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard.
Yes.
Like my compost tea brings all the boys
Yes.
to the yard. Like my topsoil is better than yours.
I love that. Wait, you guys could totally make like a parody like YouTube video.
yeah, throw that on YouTube for
I mean,
sure.
I
Wait, you would get so much business for real.
I mean, we like
You
it
guys
just
should do it.
happened.
You should do it
that
TikTok.
all of my employees, like people who work with us in this project, are women, and it's not that I'm like I don't want to hire a man. It's just happened, and I truly.
We're not sexist, we swear.
No, yeah. But I truly like what running this company has done for me in terms of like learning how to use machinery. That is something like I am from a family of 4 girls and we did not learn like handyman stuff. It just didn't
Same.
happen. So when I actually started my compost tea business with an ex-partner, he was in charge of all the machinery and I was in charge of booking all the clients and actually
Well,
interacting with the people.
yeah.
And so when we broke up and I got the company, I was like, wow, I'm going to have to learn all this stuff. And I just, you know, dove right in and I've always been so supported and just really being like, wow, I want to do this for other women. I want to empower other women to be like, we can roll up and use this big machinery and be out.
We
and,
don't need no
like,
man.
We don't, yeah, and a
Right.
lot of the times at our warehouse space, like we like take these big IBC totes. That's what we make the tea in and put in my truck. We're like taking the IBC totes up and down of our truck, and so many times these men would come running over, like,
Here, let me
can
help
we?
you with that.
Like, literally, yeah. And like Volta
Let
was
me get that for
Volta
you.
was like, just let him do it, Shelby. Like we should just let him do it one time. I was like, you know what, you're right, because it's just getting like so annoying.
Yeah.
But we were the only like women in that whole warehouse space, and
Wow.
we're like a lot of
is
times
intimidating.
in male dominated spaces, like we are, and like even the landscaping industry, and I mean definitely things are changing. Like
Yeah.
I know so many women that own amazing landscape companies, or just they're doing amazing things. It's just there's a trend happening, right? The better that we treat the soil, the better that we treat each other. And give each other
ourselves.
opportunities. Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
The better-
it's really
all
interesting
connected.
working with all women, especially having worked in spaces around landscape agriculture, what have you, where the feminine rhythm isn't the dominant rhythm. It's the daily male cycle. It's the showing up every day to grind, which of course is its own beauty, but it's so incredible working with all women. If I've just started my bleed, or if I've just got shit to take care of or whatever, like I can trust that I can lean on women to do that. Like I can't ask that of a male person on a crew unless they are like highly evolved. Like they've probably had a wife and like 3 daughters and that they figured it out
grew
eventually.
up with sisters. Like
Right. So this is not the average man that gets this. And it's so cool to work with women because it's such just like hard proof that you can work in a way where you don't have to get up at the crack of dawn. You don't have to grind all day. Just show up, do good work, do it in your feminine way, in your feminine rhythm. And we've accomplished so much and grown so much in a way that would qualify, again, in that like masculine data numbers kind of thing. If we looked at the business that way, yeah, like we've grown it for sure. We've done it in our way though. Like we like to joke, like, when people are like, oh, you got to get up early. You got to stop doing dabs. We're just like, why?
Wait,
Why? I don't think I have to stop
though?
doing that,
Why
actually. I think
same.
I'm fucking crushing it.
It's people imposing.
Same.
They're imposing their own limiting beliefs onto you.
Yeah.
And so I have actually like made not like a vow or said to myself that I don't want to change my morals and values just to get business. And I mean that in
Same.
every single way. I don't want
Yes,
to
preach.
just like appease to like a big fertilizer company and bow down to what they want me to do or something.
Yeah.
Like I will people will come to us, and that's just truly what's been happening. Like, yes, we've been putting ourselves out there, but it's a beautiful synergy of people finding us and being like, I've been looking for you all over, and there's no alternative, and my dog died from the fertilizer they were putting on the weed killer they were putting on our land.
Yes,
I'm sure that happens.
I'm gonna cry.
And and like this affects everything, not just the dogs, the bees,
kids.
like the children.
Yard, yeah.
But like it's also getting into our systems too. Like
Exactly.
you think it's
I know.
not.
It's
but
not
it
just for
is.
keep the kids safe. It's keep us safe.
Right, it's like you're covering your
Keep
stuff
you
in
safe.
chemicals and then walking through it. It's like, of course it's
80% of the pesticides that are like that pollute the waterways and our groundwater come from residential homes.
Oh my
80%. And I like recently found this out and was
it
like,
makes a
wow,
lot
we're
of
making
sense.
such an impact.
The landowner that you're renting
Totally.
from or whatever, he's just thinking,
Green yard.
it's just
Let's
this
jack
one
it up."
space. It's just this 1/4 acre. It's just that one weed. And if that's what everyone on the block is thinking, all of
Yeah.
a sudden you are living in Roundup City.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like if 75% of the houses, then the whole...
that stuff that they put in there, it will leach out. It will go somewhere else. The plants don't know how to uptake it and turn it into, like, recycle it. They
The
like they
plants
do everything
don't
else in the
understand
soil.
property lines.
Yeah.
Like, they're not here with the zoning.
Yeah, they're not concerned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's the effects. There's like everlasting effects of putting that stuff down, and people just think it's like instant and it's gone or it takes care of it. It's like, no, it is. We all have glyphosate in our blood from eating
my
GMO
God.
and
Yeah.
What is
Just from being
glyphosate?
in the
glyphosate
world.
is Roundup.
Oh, wow.
That's
okay.
like the technical
It's one of those
scientific
yucky
term.
things that is somehow still legal to
Yeah.
use and is therefore very prevalent.
They actually genetically modify plants to be able to like handle the glyphosate.
Wow.
So it's like just like taking it so far from nature just to get a yield, like to get the quantity.
And again,
things.
it's that short term. Like you get the yield this year, but wait 5 years when you have destroyed your soil, what's going to happen then?
Well, it's like hopefully by then you've sold your shares and then you're a shareholder in another company that's also growing, killing people in a different way. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's also interconnected.
yeah, it has nothing to do with the actual like eating of food. It's all about like the rapacious nature of capitalism.
Yeah, capitalism is
all
so
about the
interesting.
greed.
There are so many conventional farmers, and by conventional, I mean, using glyphosate, using till practices, accepting subsidies from the government, that kind of thing. Conventional farmers who would much prefer to be doing different practices, and they just can't economically figure it out.
Yeah.
So I really do want to give a shout out to those people because I know they
Yes.
are looking into regenerative practices and ways to work the land that are different. And I see people getting pretty innovative, even in conventional settings. Like I saw this little TikTok video of a farm that was transitioning from conventional to regenerative. And one of the first things that they did that was super simple was the feed that they gave their cows. They included grass seed in that feed that would grow the type of grass that the cows want to eat.
That is so...
So as the cows are walking around, pooping on the soil, munching on the grass, stomping on the ground, they're depositing seeds and pressing them into the earth and fertilizing them so that they can continue to grow. And then
so
the farmers are more
smart.
taking care of like irrigation and water. So it's like, again, this like delegation. You can make the cow
nature
work
with
for you.
nature.
Yeah.
The cow can make its own little
literally
salad.
work smarter, not harder. Like,
Truly,
Yeah.
it's like,
But-
why hire another person when you can just have the cow do it?
With these conventional farmers, we're talking about people who farm like thousands of acres.
Yeah.
They are actually like given a consultant for their soil. It's just someone sent out, and that person happens to work for like Monsanto or
Oh my
these
God.
other companies. And they say, you know what? You need this much of this much of this. And the farmers are just like, they listen. It's not because it makes their life easier.
Well, and then they're like, and here's your ordering form, and will you take these kinds of credit cards?
And farmers do get subsidized, like what you were talking about earlier. If compost and compost tea could actually be a subsidized fertilizer, that would change the game, because that's really the reason why these things have stayed around as long as they have, is because it makes sense economically. But we're trying to make it make sense just functionally and how we're living and interacting with it, not just the financials. But also compost tea is not expensive and it's not inaccessible. So just we want to bring that awareness that none of this is like you have to even have a special compost tea brewer. I just have a commercial compost tea brewer. But truly, you could just do this even by just putting like we said, like the dandelions in a bucket and letting it ferment and then pouring that on your garden.
This was invented by illiterates. Like, don't overthink it. This is just human. It's not, you don't have to go to college. You don't have to be a biologist.
Yeah.
Just, it's dirt and water
I love
and
that.
sun. And,
Because that's how I
simple.
feel about
Experience.
growing cannabis too. I'm like, people try to make it so difficult. It's like, no, you can literally just grow.
It's called weed.
Yes.
We said it
It's called weed for a reason because it literally just grows like a weed. Like
Well, it's like get good soil and water it. And
Well,
Yeah.
it's been like a competition of like who can grow like the most like terpene content, you know, like all these logical things that she was talking about. Like
Yeah.
it's been ranked and there's a status quo over it now. But most of the time, salt-based indoor grow weed will sell more than the living soil organic outdoor
Yeah.
stuff.
just because the
Which is a
yield
whole
or
just because the way it looks.
yeah, they're
and-
going for like bud structure,
Right. I think the reason the
colors.
industry gets away with it is because when you harvest a plant like cannabis, that is the end of its life cycle. It's harvest, it's over. It doesn't continue beyond that. Especially the way that people tend to harvest. Maybe there's some way where you could take little bits and cure them over time or something, but that's not the done thing. That's not what people do. So if we're not really concerned with, okay, how is this plant regenerating each time we harvest? Because that's not how it works. People aren't looking forward enough. They just see the first initial thing, right? Like the short-term impact. And it's beautiful. It has that like, ooh, I get Botox and fillers look of the weed.
It's like-
you know, like
Yeah.
it's not the natural beauty. It's like the enhanced
Yes,
beauty.
so true.
instant
and
gratification.
people respond to that. It
Yeah.
has bag appeal. It's beautiful. Like we can't argue with it. But I also know people with like health issues who grow their own and flush for weeks at a time, or it's just so that their end product is actually pure. And you can't expect that out of even an organic living soil grow. They're not going to put that level of effort into it. So I think that's a really interesting thing about growing at
Yeah.
home.
Well,
whether
especially
it's food
time per
or
plant.
your weed.
Yeah.
Growing your own is really the only way to have any control over that situation or any knowledge about the quality of the soil, unless
Yeah.
you're working at a farm that you co-op with or something like.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, how many of us are doing that? You did it once when you were 20 and you were like, this is too much work. Let a real farmer do it.
totally.
Right?
Yeah.
This will be a story for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Growing food at any capacity, growing any herbs, anything, you are directly connecting yourself to the soil, to like the plant spirits. And that's something I love about plants is like they will come to you and they will show you and they will speak to you if you just listen. Like I have had so many plants be around me and not knowing what the purpose they serve and their functions, and then learning, and it just all like ties into what's happening like within me and my life, and just blow my mind. Plants have truly blown my mind. 'Cause
Okay, Beebs, when did cannabis come into your life?
when did cannabis come into my life? When I was a freshman in high school. It came into my life. But I remember the first time I ever saw cannabis as a plant and not just, like the nuggets.
Yeah.
And I was floored. I was just like, this is where it comes from. And I realized how disconnected I was. And I'm like, yeah, this is a plant. This is not like a synthetic
Yeah.
thing.
So
Because
nuts.
I had friends like smoking spice and all that stuff, and I was like, no, never.
K2.
Ever. Yeah, never into that. And I have continuously smoked weed since I was a freshman.
Same, me too. I think mine was like in between 8th grade and freshman, like summer.
Okay. Do you
Summer.
remember
Yeah.
specifically?
Oh,
what
yeah.
was it?
So I was with my sister because all my friends were starting to drink, and I was like, I don't really want to drink. I feel really drawn to this like thing I've heard about, weed. And I went to my sister, who's 4 years older than me, and she's very smart. She's a doctor now. And she was like, okay, we're going to do it with you, me, and my friend. Like, I want to introduce it to you so that you know what you're doing if you're like at a party or whatever. So we smoked out of this like little bowl in her car with her friend Vivian, and then got froyo, like frozen yogurt.
Well done.
Well done.
Yeah, and it was amazing. And I was like, this is great. I want to do this all the time. Yeah, but it feels like you're like in a dream. Everything's better. Like just puts a positive, like immediately makes me happier.
Euphoric feeling.
Lifted.
Yeah. But we do need to wrap things
Yeah, I know
up,
we do.
and I want to ask you guys the one question we ask everyone if you could consume cannabis with anyone in the world, alive or dead, but it can't be family, who would it be?
I don't like your little qualifier.
I know.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
It's like,
Everyone
okay.
is always like,
All right.
not family, because we don't know who your family is, you know.
Well, but also it's like, yeah, I would love to get high with my grandpa, but
I would love
I think
to get
everyone
high
would.
with one of my favorite R&B singers. Her name is Kaylani.
okay, Lonnie.
She just released a new album.
I know. I have been listening. to
Nice.
it.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, that's my answer.
She would be awesome. I'm currently obsessed with 070 Shake, and I think they're dating.
They
Yes.
are. They definitely are.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah.
I love that
So
we
yeah,
know that.
I would love to
Yeah.
fucking smoke with them.
Fuck yeah.
Would you dab?
Man.
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted to, I feel like she like smokes a lot of. She's like smoke a lot of blunts. She's just been super vocal about her whole, like relationship with cannabis and being a singer and all this stuff. So I just
that.
know that she's down.
Hell yeah.
I think I might do Willie Nelson. I think it's something about
That's a classic.
like being from Texas or like
I was gonna say, is it because you're from Texas? I love that.
That's just what's coming through. I also like. I find him a confusing public figure, so maybe I just want to dig a little deeper. I'm like,
Yeah.
on the one
Dig a little
hand,
deeper.
you're like this stoner icon, and then like on the other hand, you just like write country music. I'm like, I guess that makes sense, but I just have to experience this
Yeah, it's
human.
like, I need some clarity on a few
That's
things.
a funny
Willie.
question.
he's getting up there in age.
He is,
I'm
yeah.
gonna have time left, peeps. I'm just kidding. The person the person could have been dead too.
Yeah,
Well,
like we-
let's
Well,
hope he
hopefully not
doesn't.
soon.
Yeah.
he's got some time.
So amazing.
Thank
I
y'all
love
so
that.
much for coming on and educating us. I learned so much. I'm literally like,
Now you can be a soil
Mind
steward
blown.
goddess.
You
Yeah,
already
wow.
are.
You already are.
Appreciate it.
You're on your way.
yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have to take a peek at McCarter's plants and like.
Oh no, they're not doing well.
Oh,
It's okay. I
well,
don't care. I'm not gonna
Maybe
judge.
you can help me.
teach us.
Yeah,
how to
we
make
can
them
give you
better.
compost tea.
I'll pay you.
Yeah, absolutely. We have so much left over from.
I would love
Like-
that. They kind of need some help this time.
Yeah, we would love
Okay, we'll go out back.
give some food to your little planties.
Thanks for having us. It's
Yay,
been such
thank
a
y'all.
joy.
Wait, where can people find you?
So our website is edaphicSolutions.com, and we are renovating it right now. And so I'm really excited. It's up, but yeah, or Instagram, Edaphic Solutions.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna tell my landlord to hire you guys.
Oh yes, yes.
Remedy
we love
our stuff.
Yes,
Seriously.
no, truly,
Yeah, we'd
truly.
be happy to.
We give you a card.
Nice. Yes.
Hell yes.
Yeah, we're about to go do
Sweet.
like a consultation after this. Go like over to someone's yard and be like, "This is what it would take."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like compost tea? And then, yeah, just get them like excited. People are like, "You gotta come see."
Yeah.
So I do like
gotta
doing that,
always
too.
see.
Yeah, doing a little site check. So we're about to do that after this.
So exciting. Yay. Well, thank y'all again. Yay. Okay, stay high, everyone.